Good morning, dear students. Today, our section is starting with the topic characters and affinities of Metatherians. In the last video, we have seen the characters and affinities of Prototherians. So, this Metatherian is a subclass under the class mammals. And first point is about the distribution of Metatherians. It is mainly distributed in Australian region. And next point is regarding its habits and habitat. These metatherians or otherwise marsupials, they are herbivores are there, insectivores are there, carnivores are there. Carnivores examples of such type are thylacines and decius. Its images are with me. This is thylacine. It is an extinct carnivorous marsupial. Next example, Decius is this one. And omnivorous marsupials are there, diurnal, nocturnal ones are there, warm-blooded ones also there, air-breathing types are there, and also viviparous pouched animals. Viviparous pouched animals also there. So, that much varieties we can found under these marsupials. Regarding the external features, body is covered over with the hairs that we have seen. In the case of all these one, most of the marsupials, its body is covered with the hairs. Pinna is well developed generally in all the marsupials, but it is absent in the case of moles. In these moles, we can't see the external ear or pinna. And regarding the tail, it is long and prehensile, rolled up tail. It is an important organ of balance in kangaroo rat. This is the kangaroo rat. And also in jumping mice. Then next is about the mammary gland. As it is a mammal, mammary gland surely will be there. And here in this Metatherians, it's a modified form of sebaceous glands. It is with elevated nipples also. And next is about the pouch, marsupial pouch or marsupium. Generally all the females possess this marsupial pouch or marsupium, but it is absent in some forms like Diadelphis and Dasyuridae. Okay, then its examples also given here. Next, inside the marsupium, it contains nipples, and that nipples possess so many tits, and number of the tits that it is based on the number of young one produced at a birth. Depending upon that, the number of tits will vary. Then next is exoskeleton. Means skeletal. Means structures seen externally. It includes all ectodermal structures. That includes hairs. And this hairs, it is derived from the Malpighian layer of epidermis. Malpighian layer means what? It is a term that is given jointly to spinous layer and the basal layer. Okay. And also claws also there. It is another exoskeletal feature. And in the skin, we can see sweat gland, sebaceous gland, and sen glands. So this along associated with the skin, we can see sweat gland, sebaceous gland, and sen gland. And also we have seen here the mammary gland. It's that itself is a modified form of it's a modification of sebaceous glands. Next is about the body cavity. Body cavity, here also a muscular diaphragm is present that divides body cavity into this thorax and the abdominal cavity. And I will show you an image of that diaphragm. This is the diaphragm. Its shape is like a parachute. And in this way, it is attached here, separating the thorax and abdominal cavity. This is some more detailed picture of the diaphragm. Next, we are going to see the endoskeletal features of Metatheria. And in that section, first we are talking about skull of Metatheria. The skull is dicondylic. That term we have already seen in the video that describes about the characteristics and features of Prototheria. Anyway, once more I am repeating to remember you. Dicondylic means it is with the two occipital condyle to attach with the atlas bone of the vertebrae. And also the brain case is small in the case of this Metatheria. And that's the first point. Next point is orbit and the temporal fossa. Orbit means that space where the eyeball is located, that orbit. And the temporal fossa. Temporal fossa means it's the side bone of the cranium. And that from that temporal fossa, the temporal muscles are attached. Temporal muscles means this muscles for mastication. This picture, that temporal fossa we can see in this picture. It is the area on the side of the cranium from where the temporal muscle arises. Okay, so that orbit and temporal fossa, they are fully confluent, joined without post-orbital bar. Post-orbital bar means it is a bony partition usually seen in the margin of orbit, and in one way we can say it is seen between orbit and the temporal fossa. I will show you. So this is the post-orbital bar. It forms the margin of the orbit, and also we know that a temporal fossa is somewhat located somewhat here. So in that sense, it is standing between the orbit and the temporal fossa. So in the case of Metatherian, there is no such post-orbital bar. Instead, it is confluent. Orbit and temporal fossa is confluent. So post-orbital bar, it is a bone in the vertebrate skull which form the portion of the skull roof, and sometimes it forms a ring about the orbit. Anyway, I think it's clear now for you. So anyway, no post-orbital bar in the case of Metatherians. That is the second point. The other point is that bony palate. Palate, we know it is the roof of the buccal cavity. It is incomplete posteriorly. That means a furrow we can see like this. In this form, we can see a furrow. It is that means that palate is incomplete. And next point regarding the jugal bone, otherwise zygomatic bone. Jugal bone, it reaches back, means it is extending more towards the back. Why it is extending more towards the back? To participate, to help to form a glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity means it's a cavity that helps to give articulation to the next bone. I will show you first. Jugal bone. Jugal bone is this bone, and it is extend backwards. This is not the skull of a Metatherian. Only just I am showing to explain you or make it clear what is the jugal bone. So this is the jugal bone. It is extend backwards and to help to form a glenoid. Glenoid. You can see here there's a depression like part is forming to give articulation to the next bone. Here it's a lower jaw. So that it was telling here, jugal bone, it extend back to form a glenoid cavity for what? To articulate the lower jaw. That is another feature of the skull of this Metatherian. Next is about the lacrimal bone. Lacrimal bone is a bone that we can see around near to the orbit, front part of the orbit. I will show you. Front part. Lacrimal bone is a small, fragile bone of the facial skeleton, and it is having the size of a fingernail, and where it is located at the front part of the medial wall of the orbit. So that is the lacrimal bone. So lacrimal bone, it extends a little bit outside the orbit in the case of Metatherians. Then tympanic bulla is absent. Tympanic bulla means it's a bony hollow cavity. Here in this dog we can see that. It is a cavity that we can see inside the middle ear, that is tympanic bullae. And this tympanic bullae is the expansion of temporal bone. Temporal bone means it's a bone seen in the side of the skull. So it is an expansion, and that tympanic bullae is a bony hollow cavity as part of the middle ear, inside the middle ear. So anyway, that tympanic bullae is absent. Then these are some other bones we can see in the temporal region: tympanic, periotic, and squamosal. All these bones exist separately. That's another feature. Then alisphenoid. Alisphenoid is another cartilage type bone we can see in the side of the skull itself. It assists in the formation of bulla. Anyway, bulla is absent in the case of this Metatherians. So I am just showing this alisphenoid. Alisphenoid bone. It is a cartilaginous bone within the mammalian skull, and it is seen associated with the socket of the eye. So this is the alisphenoid. Okay. Next, one more point regarding this alisphenoid bone. It extends backwards, means we know where it is located. It extends forward to join the greatly elongated par-occipital process. Par-occipital process. To join with that process, this in kangaroo, that we need to note. In the case of kangaroos, this alisphenoid extend backward. So I am going to show you what is that par-occipital process. This is a par-occipital process, and this is for joining with or articulating with the lower jaw in the case of kangaroo. Next one. In the case of lower jaw, it consists of a single dentary. Then what is this dentary? Dentary means it is the bone that we can see in the lower jaw, that bears teeth. In the case of mammals, it forms the whole lower jaw. It is otherwise called mandible. Anyway, it is the bone that holding the teeth. So in the case of Metatherian, this lower jaw, its inner side is modified. It is structure is somewhat modified to give articulation, to give side for the attachment for pterygoid muscle. Pterygoid muscles are the muscles for mastication that we can see here. Next endoskeletal feature of Metatherian is about vertebral column. Regarding the vertebral column, an odontoid process is present. Odontoid process means it is a small protuberance from the axis vertebrae. So it is there in the case of this Metatherians. I will show you. This is that odontoid process. This one, odontoid process. It's a protuberance. And one peculiarity is that this odontoid process has a constrictor region. This constricted region is called neck. So that is odontoid process. Odontoid process is present in the case of the vertebral column of the Metatherians. Then coming to cervical ribs. Cervical ribs means it is the first rib. It's an extra, not first. It's an extra rib that is forming above the first rib. This is the first rib, and above to that first rib forming another extra rib. That extra rib is called the cervical rib. So that rib is growing from the base of the neck just above the collarbone. So that is cervical rib. The cervical rib is with its respective vertebrae. It have its own vertebrae. So it is arising from that vertebrae. Then next point is about the seventh cervical vertebrae. Seventh vertebrae of neck. What is its peculiarity? It has one not one, two holes are there. It is pierced on both sides. and that holes are called foramen. What is the purpose of that hole? To give passage to the vertebral artery. So I will show you. These are that passage, foramen. For what purpose? To give passage for the artery, vertebral artery. So what is vertebral artery? Vertebral arteries are paired arteries. They emerge from subclavian arteries. Subclavian arteries that supplies blood to upper arm and head and neck. So from that subclavian artery emerge paired arteries. They are called vertebral artery. It is supplying blood to upper part, mainly the occipital lobes, posterior fossa, brain regions like that. And also it supplies blood to all the vertebrae and the spinal column. So that is vertebral artery. Seventh vertebrae. It is pierced by a foramen for giving passage to vertebral artery. Next point is regarding how many ribs are present. In thoracic vertebrae, 13 ribs are present, and 7 lumbar vertebrae is also present. So, thoracically, 13 rib-bearing thoracic vertebrae are present, and also in lumbar region, 7 vertebrae are present. So, I am going to show you an image. This image is not that of Metatherians. Anyway, I just showing this for you to understand the position of different vertebrae. So, this is the cervical vertebrae, neck vertebrae. And this one is the thoracic vertebrae. In the case of Metatherians, it is not 12, it is 30. And in the case of lumbar vertebrae also, it is not 5, but it is 7 in the case of Metatherians. Also, it possesses a sacrum. Sacrum means what? It is a shield shaped. It is a shield shaped bony structure where it is located at the base of the lumbar vertebrae, and also it is connected to this pelvis. Okay, that is about different vertebrae. Then sacrum also I showed to you where it's this position, and it is supported by caudal vertebrae. Sacrum is supported by caudal vertebrae. Caudal vertebrae means vertebrae that is present in the tail region, and that too well developed in the case of only some Metatherians, those animals whose caudal region is lengthier, is long. Only in those animals that the caudal vertebrae is well developed. Others, it is short. So, I am going to show examples. Caudal region is short in koala. Koala, it is here there is no tail. So, caudal region is short. In wombats also, the caudal region is short. But in the case of opossums, the caudal region is long. So, caudal region is elongated, and the caudal vertebrae is more developed there in the case of opossums. Not opossums only, decius, phalanges, and kangaroos. In all those organisms, caudal regions are means not short. And also some chevron bones also we can see. Chevron bones means what? Chevron bones means there are certain bony arch where we can see this chevron bone on the ventral side of the caudal vertebrae, caudal or tail vertebrae of the vertebrates. Okay. Next endoskeletal feature that we are going to see about girdles. Girdles means pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. In the case of pectoral girdle, coracoid is so reduced like that of placentals. Coracoid means this bone. This bone is so reduced in almost all Metatherians. And scapula is that bone that we can see in the back region near to the shoulder, and it is enlarged and provided with a spine. That is another feature of Metatherian regarding the pectoral girdle. Next is about the clavicle. Clavicle, we know the bone that we can see in this region. In this picture, in green color, we can see clavicle. And that clavicle is absent in bandicoots. This metatherian, that clavicles are absent. And also there is no interclavicle in metatherians. Interclavicle means that bone seen between the two clavicles. In pelvic girdle, the epipubic bone, I will show you. This is the epipubic bone. Epipubic bone. That epipubic bone, it is seen project forward from the pubis in all metatherians. In thylacines means this animal is an extinct metatherian. That epipubic bone is represented by small cartilages. Next endoskeletal feature that we are going to learn is about limbs. Limbs means we need to understand about forelimb and hind limb. Regarding the forelimb, the main forelimb bones, they are radius and ulna. They are separate in the case of these metatherians, and that feature helps them or give them the adaptation to do pronation and supination. What is this pronation and supination? Before that, I am showing this is the radius and this is the ulnar bone. Between these two bones are held separately. They are free. Because of that feature, metatherians can do supination and pronation. First, I am going to show you supination. Supination is simple. Think that in what way we move our palm for doing scooping with a spoon. That movement is supination. So imagine that this hand is carrying a spoon and see in what way the movement. This is supination. Supination. And the movement against to that is pronation. This is pronation. So this is pronation. Okay. Next point is that regarding the fingers, thumb is not opposable, but the inner two digits, I will draw and show you. Suppose 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The inner two digits. These inner two digits are opposable to outer three digits. So, in the case of metatherians, generally thumb is not opposable, but the inner two digit is opposable to the outer three digits for grasping. Next point is that the forearm, that hand is with 5 cloved digits, except in the case of which organism, which metatherians, cherubs, this organism, except in the case of cherubs, there is no 5 cloved digits. And also in that organism, the carpus region is without centrale. These are centrale is a bone in carpus. Carpus is this region, and centrale is such a bone we can see in the carpus. Okay. So that's it. Then regarding the hind limb is with 5 digits. Tibia and fibula are the main two bones in the hind limbs, we know. In metatherians, the fibula is free. Fibula is free, so it can rotate on tibia. That is another feature. And also, in some cases, the first digit in the hind limb can be used as thumb. That is another feature. Okay. Then regarding the hallux means the first big toe. Hallux is frequently absent in the case of metatherians, and the second and third digits, they are in the most cases they are slender and united by a skin. That feature is called the syndactyly. Okay. Now endoskeletal features are over. Next features of metatherian that we are going to learn is about digestive system. Digestive system, we know that we need to understand from mouth till the anus. So first we are going to see something inside the mouth, that is teeth. In the case of Metatherians, it possesses only one set of teeth. One set of teeth means it possesses only a permanent set of teeth. There is no milk teeth. There is no deciduous teeth. Only one set of teeth. Only one set of teeth during its life. But there is one exception regarding the milk molar. One molar is there as milk, and later in its lifespan, it will replace by the last premolar. Understand? Okay. So, throughout the life, there is only one set of teeth, exception only for one milk molar, which will later get replaced by last premolar. Next is about the incisors. Incisors number is more in Metatherians than in placentals. Then regarding the premolars and molars. In the case of Metatherians, it possesses 3 premolars and 4 molars. While in the case of placentals, premolars are 4 and molars are 3. So there is a difference. Then in opossum's picture I have already shown to you in the former slide. So anyway, dentition in opossum is incisors 3 in upper jaw, 4 in lower jaw. Then canis likewise 1 in upper jaw and 1 in lower jaw. Premolars 3 in upper jaw, 3 in lower jaw, and molars 4 in upper jaw and 4 in lower jaw. Then regarding the stomach. Stomach is usually simple, but in the case of kangaroo, that stomach is elongated and sacculated. Sacculated means it consists of, or it is a union of so many sacs. I will show you. So, in the case of kangaroo, the stomach is sacculated, means it consists of so many sacs. And cecum is usually present. Cecum means what? It is the beginning, first portion of large intestine, but it is absent in deciduous. Next Metatherian character is regarding the respiratory, circulatory, and excretory system. All these systems means respiratory, circulatory, and excretory systems. They are all typically mammalian type itself. That means respiration takes place with the help of lungs. And regarding the heart, there is one feature, that is it is without fossa ovalis. Then what is fossa ovalis? It is a depression. It is a depression. What it means? It is a remnant of foramen ovale. What is foramen ovale? Foramen ovale is an opening during the embryonic development of human, which is significant in maintaining the fetal circulation. And later, after the birth of the baby, it will close. If it not close, then that will be an abnormal condition. Anyway, and that's not our topic. Leave that. So anyway, fossa ovalis is a depression formed or a depression. It is a remnant of foramen ovale. Okay, then that fossa ovalis, how it is formed? It is formed by the fusion of septum primum and septum secundum. Then what is the septum primum and septum secundum? Septum primum means during the embryonic development, that single atrium, through that atrium, a septum is forming, dividing the single atrium to two. So that septum is septum primum. Then what is septum secundum? Septum secundum is a semi-lunar shaped muscular flap that is growing from the upper wall of the atrium. For what purpose it grows from the upper wall of the atrium? To close the foramen ovale after birth. Okay. So that's it. Next point regarding the valves, auriculoventricular valves, tricuspid, bicuspid valves are there. And these valves are attached to papillary muscles. Papillary muscles means muscles that is located in the ventricles of the heart. So that valves are attached to the papillary muscles through chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae means what then? They are certain fibrous tissue-like structures that is attaching the tricuspid valve to the papillary muscles of the ventricle. Okay, next Metatherian feature that we are going to understand is about the nervous system. In the case of nervous system, first thing we need to talk about brain. Brain is relatively smaller in the case of this Metatherians. Then olfactory bulbs. Metatherians possess large olfactory bulbs. We know that olfactory bulbs are those regions of the brain that is concerned with the perceiving smell. So as it possesses large olfactory bulbs, that means that their sense of perceiving smell is high. Okay, then next regarding corpus callosum. Corpus callosum, the same thing I explained to you in so many places in this chapter itself. Anyway, once more I am repeating, corpus callosum means it is that nerve band that connects the two cerebral hemispheres. It is absent. It is absent in the case of this Metatherians. And anterior commissure. Anterior commissure means it is the white matter tract. It is a white matter tract. That means a bundle of axons. What it's doing, it connects the two temporal lobes. Temporal lobes, that part of brain that we can see on each side. It connects the two temporal lobes of cerebral hemispheres. It connects across the midline. And also its position, it is placed in front of the columns of fornix. Fornix, what is fornix? That also we need to know what is fornix. Fornix means it is a major out tract of hippocampus. This is hippocampus. It is an out tract of hippocampus and it goes arching around the thalamus. Thalamus we can see here, thalamus. And what its purpose? It connects the medial temporal lobes to hypothalamus. So anyway, as we have seen this word, we should be clear what is phonics. That's why I explained you phonics also. Okay. Anyway, in Metatherians, this anterior commissure that we now understood that is a white matter tract. It connects the two corpora striata. Corpora striata means what? Then corpora striata is again some nerve tract where we can see on the lateral wall and as well as the floor of paracels. Paracels. Then what is paracels? Paracels, it is the common term that we are giving to the two lateral ventricles of the brain. The first and second ventricles of the main togetherly called as paracels. Its lateral wall and its floor is lined by this corpora striata. It's a nerve band. So that is another feature. So this anterior commissure connects the two corpora striata. Okay, two corpora striata because paracels means two lateral channels are there. That means in those two corpora striata will be there and those two corpora striata are connected by this anterior commissure. Then regarding the cerebral hemispheres, its surface is convoluted, means immensely folded one. Cerebral hemisphere surface is so convoluted. And the cerebellum, we know, towards the back of the brain, it is small and simple. And next, cochlea. Cochlea is spirally coiled. Cochlea is present. We know that cochlea is that part of the internal ear, as it is doing a function relating with the balance. That's why we mentioned about cochlea here. Next Metatherian feature is regarding the reproductive system. In male, there is no vesicular seminals or seminal vesicle. Seminal vesicles are those convoluted tubule. I will show you convoluted tubule that we can see on either side of the urinary bladder. And what is its role is that it secretes a fluid and that will form a part of the semen. That is the role of that seminal vesicle. So that is absent in male. And that testis is descended to the scrotal sacs. That is placed in front of the penis. So that is another feature. Testis is descended to the scrotal sacs which is placed in front of the penis. I know that what is scrotal sacs. So that's why I am not going to explain. Then glans penis. Glans penis is that fleshy region that we can see at the tip of the penis. It is bifid in several species. I'm just showing you one image just to understand what is a bifid gland penis. This is a bifid type. So, in some Metatherians, the glans penis, that is the tip of the penis, is bifid. In females, the Mullerian duct means a duct that present in the embryonic stage that will later give rise to the female genital organs like oviduct, uterus and vagina. So, in some Metatherians, this Mullerian duct becomes separated from the Wolffian and it forms the urogenital sinus, and later in the development stage it will become the oviduct, uterus and vagina. Example in the case of Didelphis. Then what is Wolffian duct? Wolffian duct is that duct that present in the embryo that will give rise to the male genital structure if that young one that to be born is a male. Okay, so I'm just mentioning you what is the difference between Wolffian and Mullerian. So here we have talked about Mullerian duct only. So in some forms, some Metatherians like Didelphis, Mullerian duct, they separate posteriorly towards the posterior, and it separate and forms a urogenital sinus, and then later it will differentiate into oviduct, uterus and vagina. Then what is this urogenital sinus? That time also we need to understand. Urogenital sinus during embryonic stage it is a normal condition, but after the birth also this condition exists, then that will be an abnormal condition. So let us understand what is urogenital sinus. Urogenital sinus, uro and genital, they share a common opening. That is the condition, urogenital sinus. Urogenital sinus. That means during the development, these are two pictures I just put to just to show you what is the difference between urogenital sinus and that normal condition. So first, urogenital sinus. In this picture, it's already a born out person's anatomy. So here we can see that uterus is sharing a common passage with that urinary bladder. Genital discharge as well as that urine discharge comes out through a common opening. So if that condition exists in a born out baby, then that will be an abnormal condition. But during the development, embryonic development period, that is a normal stage. That means in early fetal development. Normally for a short period of time, intestine, reproductive and urinary tract of developing baby share a common cavity or opening. That is called urogenital sinus. But as the pregnancy continues and these three tracts need to separate and each one need to develop its own opening. That is the normal thing. If it doesn't happen, then that baby born out with an abnormality that is called the urogenital sinus. During the embryonic stage, it is a normal condition. Okay, clear? So, I just mentioned, I just explain all those things to make you understand about what is this urogenital sinus. So, here also during the embryonic development, Mullerian duct, later it means it grows posteriorly and becomes separate and become a urogenital sinus, and then differentiating into oviduct, uterus, and vagina in dialysis. But in some other forms, that vagina give rise to vagina's anterior portion. Vagina's anterior portion give rise to diverticulars, and they will meet medially and will form a common duct called sinus vaginalis. And this sinus vaginalis, it will extends up and joins with the urogenital sinus. All these happen in the embryological development process. It joins with the urogenital sinus. Okay, that I will show you. This is just an image of Mullerian duct and Wolffian duct to make you aware about what are these ducts and its significance. I already told you Wolffian duct gives rise to the male genital organs. Mullerian during the embryonic development gives the female genital organs. Its end is called the urogenital sinus. And here we talk that in some other forms, anterior part of the vagina. This is a kangaroos, genital structures. Kangaroo possess 3 vaginas. 1, 2, 3 vaginas are there, and a common tract is there. So I took this image just to explain this part. The anterior part of the vagina gives back some backwardly directed diverticula, and these two diverticula meet together here and form a midline called the sinus vaginalis, and it extends up to the front end of the urogenital sinus, and that end remains closed until the young one is born. So just understand. So that's a feature with regard to some Metatherians. In some other forms like macropodidae, that hind end, the one that I already shown to you, the hind end opens, or hind end develop an opening, occurs an opening into the urogenital sinus at the time of paturation, at the time of birth. Okay. Then clitoris. Clitoris means it is that part of the genitalia of females that give the pleasure of the sex. So clitoris also there, it is double. Clitoris is this one. So it is double in the case of this Metatherians. Okay. Next Metatherian feature is regarding the development. Females are generally viviparous. Viviparous means giving birth to young ones. Their eggs are yolky, and also it is covered with albumin and a shell membrane. Cleavage is unequal. Unequal cleavage is their method of cleavage during the embryonic development. And the placenta is of yolk sac type. That means the yolk sac plays an important role in nourishing the developing embryo in the early gestation time. But in paramales, otherwise called bandicoot, allantois also plays a role in nourishing to some extent. The embryos, they are born very young. Very young means after 8 days from the day of conception in the case of opossum metatherian. And they develop inside the pouch attached to the tets. Tets means that nipples. Okay. So development is like that. Embryos are embryos are taking its birth very early. Very early means so early, even 8 days after the day of conception, and they develop inside the pouch. And that young stays in that pouch for 8 to 9 months. 8 to 9 months. And that period, mother remains lactationally induced, means it continuously lactate that feed the young ones, and also remains anoestrus. Anoestrus means it is that period of sexual inactivity, means that sexual stimulation will not be there. So during that period of lactation for the long 8 to 9 months. As today's section becomes so lengthy, I think it is not wise to add the affinities of Metatherians along with the this same video. So that will be better if I add that details in another video. So I am going to wind up today's section here, and we will meet in another video with the affinities of Metatherians. Thank you.
I'm an icon, man. And my girl about a 10. I should fuck her in the Benz.